deal with somehow.
Thanks a lot. That's not why I came here, to talk about restless middle finger. But you know what? A couple of months ago, Art Larson told me that if you do have restless middle finger syndrome, and there are any feds, and they didn't come up here and introduce themselves to us, right there, it's legal. All right. First thing I want to say is, hey, from one guy who spent some time behind bars to the rest of you guys, welcome back. And if this is the best they got,
Shit.
bring it. You know, it's just not enough. Tony, who was up here a few minutes ago, you know, when I was asked to do this, I'm actually kind of honored to be able to do something like this. I don't do it very often. And I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I had several, you know, I could come up here and talk about cannabis. I can talk about the Constitution. I could talk about the government. And what I decided I was not going to have a speech prepared.
All right.
But then I did.
Bring it on, JJ.
Let me just start. I just want to actually. All right. Let me just start by saying that without due process and without habeas corpus, cops, courts, and Congress are nothing but kidnappers, cons, and criminals.
All right.
All right? Now you listen to what Tony had to say, and I think maybe he hit the nail on the head. Before I read from my speech, there's a few things I do want to say. You might wonder why would they try to infiltrate this group here, but Tony mentioned it during his talk, because you guys were getting involved and you're being successful locally here. And maybe that, you know, I don't know if that's the reason. I know it goes much deeper than that, but I guarantee that if you keep doing it, that you're going to expect more of the same. All of us, everywhere we go. You got to expect this. It's going to happen. All right? And this is the best they got, and the best ain't good enough. Now, quite frankly, in 10,000 years, I'm not so sure anthropologists that are studying our epoch or our era, man and humans, would really be able to tell us apart from the baboons or the cavemen, unless they were somehow able to attribute our technology to the humans. And we need to evolve. It's not a people, it's not a religion that we should be worried about. It's ideas, systems.
That's right.
Like usury and slavery. We need to move beyond violence and punishment, past war, vengeance, and retribution. Whenever we, as a people, are wrong, we demand retribution. When our government is wrong, we demand shock and awe. We demand vengeance. We watch and we don't see what's really going on. We know in the back of our minds that it's heinous, that it's evil. We know that bombs and sanctions cause death and despair and agony and pain. Right. They don't create solutions. They don't make things better for anyone. Yet we allow our government to convince us that we have the moral authority, that they have the moral authority, that they're animals that we're bombing, that death and dislocation of millions and millions of people is somehow morally just and upright when we do it, when our government does it, pardon me. We allow that our government acts in our name, that they act in our behalf, that they represent us in our interests. When they're attacked, we stand behind them. We allow them to tell us that those aren't women and children, they're animals. And by not decreeing that it's immoral, we're saying that it's not, that we're just, that we're immoral, we've got this sort of high ground on planet Earth where we can go around and demand, you know, social change anywhere. We can demand regime change or governmental changes anywhere in the world. Our governments our government specifically, but all governments are immoral. They're all corrupt. The wars we're in right now are immoral. They're unconstitutional, undeclared, unjust. They send us to war, yet it's our sons and our daughters who die, not theirs. It's our brothers and sisters that go hungry here, not theirs. It's the common man, us, the regular people, that pay and pray. Sometimes, I know a lot of the older generation pray that they die before they see the outcome of of the collapse, of the end of a certain epoch or era in modern time. And it's happening before our eyes, believe me. They feed off it and they grin. And when our government wrongs us, what has happened? We convince ourselves that if the government does it, we deserved it. That you can't buck the system or authority. We make ourselves become weak and meek in the presence of state. If the government does it, it's okay to poison our children, maim our children. It's okay to tase and shoot and kill and loot. And if they come and you refuse or you don't comply, you guys will know this, you will pay. You'll be held accountable, and you'll pay dearly. You can ask Randy Weaver, the Branch Davidians, or even the Browns. Instead of demanding redress and satisfaction, we label and condemn our brothers and our sisters, our aunts and our uncles, our mothers and fathers, because our government or some hate group like the ADL or the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, says they're bad, says they've done something. They're plotting to do something. So are we really evolved? Why? I got to ask you, why if the 1% look after each other, don't we? I'm often asked a question, why, us, and I use the term 99% very loosely, because even amongst us, we're a tiny percentage of the 99%, all right? Us, eyes wide open sort of folk. Why do we fight each other? I mean, we outnumber them, clearly. Why all the racism and the hate? It's forced down our throats. It's perceived. Our language has been labeled hate speech by hate groups. Like the ADL, like the Southern Poverty Law Center, by legislation, by lobby, by political correctness. Believe me, 1/10 of the 1%, you guys know what I'm talking about. The ones who own the world hate each other. They hate us. They're not racist. They hate everyone, regardless of their color, their race, their creed. They hate.
That's right.
But guess what? We have the capacity to not hate. We're different. You can't judge them by what you would or you wouldn't do. We have the capacity for compassion, for empathy. They don't. That's our ace in the hole. That's the only thing that separates us from the elites, from the psychopaths, the sociopaths. As long as we look at poor people like lazy alcoholics or dirty hippies, or we look at people in the ghetto like they're crackheads and thieves, every time, as long as we see rednecks and hillbillies as backwards and stupid, nothing can change. As long as we can label somebody or think of a group or a person as less than, nothing can change. Nothing. As long as we allow labels and words to enable us not to care about a person or a group of people, we can call somebody a criminal or a crack addict, or we can call them an alcoholic or an addict, or in my case when I was young, a juvenile delinquent.
Right. That was you, baby.
But labeling me a juvenile delinquent made it a lot easier for my parents to allow the state to come and take me out of their house.
Uh-oh.
All right? I'm just saying labels.
That's right.
As long as we can hate somebody or something so much, we can hate so much that just being left alone is not enough. It's not enough. That in our minds we hate them so much that nothing less than begging on their knees for forgiveness will do.
That's right.
Nothing's going to change. We will be at a disadvantage. Unless you can win, unless I can win, unless we can win this personal battle, I feel like we're going to perish. 80%, 80%. Benjamin Franklin said, war is when the government tells you who the enemy. Revolution is when we decide who the enemy is.
Yeah.
I say let's
Come
start
on.
300 million revolutions right now.
Yeah.
Let's do something to save the future for our children, for our children's children. I guess that's it.
Amen,
Thank you. Thank you very
JJ.
much.